Let me talk about my experience with Airbnb because I said I would. So what happened was the conference tickets were for staying in a hotel in like DC were like 300, 250 plus. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I'm like, does it have to be $300? So what I did was I'm like, all right, let me check out Airbnb. So when I went to look at it, a lot of the rooms are sold out, kind of directly within like that area. So what I did was like, all right, I'm gonna find something a little bit further out, maybe 25, 30 minutes, no big deal, right? Considering parking in DC. But anyway, I found a spot and I'm like, all right, reasonable price. And I get there. Well, before I even get there, they sent me this link saying, hey, you need to read this manual. I'm like, what manual? Well, I'm like, all right, whatever. And sent me a special code or something to get into the place. I thought it was odd. So I glanced at the manual, no big deal. Had some cute pictures, had like some rules. So the conference ran long, and this was Sunday night. So I had to check in Sunday afternoon at 3. I got there at like 11 o'clock. Number one, and this one I should have realized something was up. I couldn't find the place. Like I put it in Google Maps, I put it in Waze, and it wasn't coming up. I'm like, what is going on? So I got in the general vicinity. 11:45, I'm texting this person through the Airbnb app. I'm calling, nothing. I did it again. I started searching for it again. And I'm like, all right, let me try it. So it took me to a different location when I just start playing around looking at some of the pictures that it had in Airbnb. And it's 12 o'clock in DC. My little brown ass is running around there like, all right, where am I gonna go? Last thing I need to get run in by the police. And saying, hey, I'm trying to find a place to stay. That's gonna sound real sexy, right? So I find a place, what I thought was a place. So I get out of my car and I like walk around and all the lights are off and they had this picture and they had the address up there on the picture on the app. And I thought it was kind of it, but it was dark. So I walked up to it and I shined my light on for my flashlight. That should have been a big red flag for me. I should have known. This car pulls up. It's pitch dark and all I hear is, I don't even know what kind of cookout was going on, but I recognize the music. I'm hearing them playing Electric Slide, so I'm like, all right, this gotta be at least a legit neighborhood. At least they're breaking some, they're cutting the rug, right? So I'm sitting there checking with the flashlight. Car pulls up. At this point, I wouldn't say I'm desperate, but I'm tired. It took me like, let's fast skip DC, but I was just tired. I knew I had to be up in 3.5, 4 hours. So this car pulls up, and I walk up to the car. I'm like, yo, is this Airbnb? He says, yeah, fam, I got you. I'm like, word. Just make it a shot. Not that I'm worried about that, but you know what I mean? Just walking up to somebody at 12 o'clock. He gets out the car, and then he shows me, like, yeah, just come in. And I was like, yo, dude, I don't have my code right now. It's late. He's like, follow me in. I go to my car, grab my stuff, and I follow behind him. That's when Bad News Bear showed up. Number one, I grew up different. I recognize that. And they mentioned that marijuana is legal in DC, so I'm fine with that too, whatever. If you like it, then I love it. I don't judge anybody. And it was like a rap video, like straight up 3, 4, 5, 6 people, well, 3, 4 people just chilling. Everybody's got blunts out. And I'm like, all right, this is not looking like a good stereotype to be a part of. And I'm like, am I at the right place? And this woman, this voice, it was like Oz. You know what I mean? Just all you heard was a voice. You didn't see anybody. It's like, did you read the manual? Did you read the manual? I'm like, I got the manual, but I didn't think I would really need to read it just to lay down. So second red flag was this. The place I stayed at was called The Chappelle, right? And I'm like, Chappelle, that sounds French. No. It was named after black comedians. Every room was named after a black comedian, and it was Dave Chappelle, who was it? Richard Pryor. Who else? It was Dave Chappelle, Richard Pryor, Samuel Jackson, who I didn't even know was a goddamn comedian. Pardon my language, but I was just like tripping out. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I had to go up these stairs to find this room. I thought it was a room. No, it was a bed. So I go up there and I'm like, man, it's hot. I couldn't see anything. She didn't have any lights on. I was like, hey, are there any lights? She's like, you need to read the manual. She's just screaming that. I don't know what she looks like. So I was just annoyed. I've turned my flashlight on my light from my camera again, my cell phone again. And I walk into, I see like these notes on the wall. It had like 12 different languages. And I speak German, I haven't spoken in a while, but for some reason the German stood out to me and it said danger in German. I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? I go into the room and I see this dude lying in the bed. I can't make this up, I promise you. And I realized they were bunk beds. Always read details and directions for folks. So I look in the room and I realized there were 4 bunk beds. So it was like, 1 and 2 and then 1 and 2. And I've got the black comedian pictures on there, African-American comedians, whatever. And I see this dude with like a camera resting on his chin, on his chest. I'm like, what's he doing? And it was dark. All I had was this hall. All I had to light was my phone. And I'm like, where his hands at? And then I see like some images on his face or whatever. And I'm like, I see colors. I'm like, is this dude jerking off? And I'm like, there's no way this dude's jerking off. There's no way. I see the covers jumping from the waist level. I'm like, oh, hell no. This ain't happening. So I'm like sitting there like talking to myself. I'm like one of my superpowers is I can make anything funny. At the time, it wasn't that funny. And I'm like, how am I gonna make this funny? And so I'm like, whatever, I just dropped the stuff, let the man have his moment. And I'm still tripping like, this can't be real, this can't be real. I'm like, let me go find the bathroom. So I was getting ready to go in the bathroom. I noticed this bright light was coming from behind the door. Like, oh, I'm like, all right, good. I'm gonna take me a cold shower before I get in. I take a shower in the morning. Well, I'm like waiting and no one comes out the bathroom, and I hear somebody. I'm like, all right, I'm not going back in the room with the chronic masturbator, right? So I just like sat out in the hall. And it was like 10 minutes. This woman comes out, and I'm looking, and I'm like, am I seeing this right? She's wearing like a nightgown, no bra, and I'm like, this ain't right. I'm like, this ain't going down, not like this, baby. And I'm just like sitting there in shock. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, where's the hidden camera? I'm waiting for somebody to jump out and say something. She's like, oh, you need to get in here. I'm like, yeah, the bathroom? Yes, I do need to get into the bathroom. So I go into the, she gets her stuff out of there. I'm just like tripping. I'm like, I'm not leaving my stuff anywhere. I'm expecting to run out. I go in the bathroom and I shut the door, and I had all my stuff with me because nobody's gonna try to rob me. I still, not from the streets, but I spend enough time in the streets to know you make sure you keep your stuff with you. So I look around, shut the bathroom door, and I start seeing these hairs all around. And I'm like, that kind of hair doesn't grow on the chin. And that's not a nose hair. I'm like, all right, so it's pubes. I'm like, go to the bathroom, wash my hands, all the good stuff. I'm like, I got to brave the storm. So I go in the room. My man's finished doing his business, and I'm sitting there like, this is real. So I look at the manual, I look at the directions again, and be damned if it didn't say that you get a bed. I'm like, I got to do something. So meanwhile, outside, they got cookout music going on. So I'm hearing Cardi B, I Like It Like That. I'm hearing Electric Slide. I'm hearing the Cupid Shuffle, which is fly any other time, but not when you're dead tired. So about this time, it's 1 o'clock. I'm hearing out of nowhere, and I'm still not even in the bed. I'm hearing screaming. They got the dude laying on the top bunk. I got this chick. I don't know what the hell she was doing. She's in the other side of it, on top of him, on the bunk. Nothing like that. And there was nobody underneath me, and I'm like, I got to climb up. I'm 6'4", like 240, solid, and I had to climb on top of the bunk. And I'm like, is this thing gonna hold me? And I'm like, am I really about to sleep here? I get up top, took me a few minutes, and I'm laying there. I'm wearing a button-down dress shirt and everything. A button-down, slacks and everything. I'm just laying there in the bed, in my shoes. I pulled a towel out of my bag and wrapped it around the pillow because I was not using that damn pillowcase. And I'm just like laying there on my back like, this cannot be real. So I knew I needed to be at the convention center by at least 6. It was the most uncomfortable sleep I've ever had. I heard windows being busted out. Mind you, my car's out front, and I'm like stressed. I'm just pressing the horn of my car. I'm just sleeping, like I'm just waking up. I had my glasses lying right beside me in the bed, so all I had to do was just roll over, pop in my face, and I could see what's going down. The chick that was in the bed, I think she was Jamaican, and she was talking in her sleep, which didn't help anything. And I hear, get off of me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I did not get any sleep. I woke up at 4:40. I took the fastest showers I've ever seen in my life, and I just went out and just chilled out in my car. I called an Uber just because I was too tired to drive. Called an Uber, and they took me to the convention center. I ain't even trying to make this long-winded. I'm still tripping of how many dumb things that happen. There's some more little simple details, but these things I'm talking about, the things that cracked me up the most. I'm like, you got to be kidding me that I just paid for this. But check your Airbnb. Make sure you look at all the details. And it's real out here. But anyway, after all that foolishness went down, it was awesome. I got to see Oprah, and I was so close where we were close enough that it was just like stupid. We could see dimples on her face and all that stuff like that. Like I started, but I wasn't the biggest Oprah fan. I mean, I got to give the lady credit where credit's due. Very incredibly wise, very humble, but still very aware of who she is, which you don't see too much. Phenomenal speaker, phenomenal story, nuggets of wisdom, but it was all in all a fantastic trip. I met some amazing people, and some of them are connected here on Facebook, and some connected on LinkedIn. If you're watching this, if I connected with you, you know that you're awesome, and I would not wait to see what kind of work we're going to be doing together, and just how we're going to be some really great friends. But more of the story. Oprah's awesome. Check your details at Airbnb. Do not go to any place that has the beds named or a room named after any comedians. And maybe that could be some blanket information that might not be helpful for some, but if I had known that, I would not have stayed at that room. So rock it out, stay smiling, and always make it funny.